So I have an old colleague called Tess Zhao who I worked with for a long time and really enjoyed working with. And Tess did a number of things for the Stock Expo, and she asked me if I would do it, and I thought, okay, why not? Because I think it's very good to put more women out there and let people see that there are women in the industry to encourage others. So about a year ago, I set up my own company called ESGenuine, and basically I advise companies on corporate social responsibility. I'm a specialist in the 7 main non-financial areas of corporate social responsibility. So I advise companies on that. I do assessments for them, set up action plans for them. And within that corporate social responsibility remit, I have a particular passion for health and safety. I believe everybody has a fundamental right to a healthy and safe workplace. So sometimes within a company, I'll also be very focused also only on the health and safety policy and strategy. Well, for me, the issue is more diversity rather than just women. I do have a little bit of difficulty when it's only focusing on women, because I think it's about all walks of society. And I think if you have a mix in your organization that represents society, then that's got to give you the best way forward. You have everybody's opinions, you have everybody's ideas, you have not everybody thinking the same. So I think it's really important to talk about inclusion of everybody rather than just women. Well, I think if we're thinking about women, I think activities like this and putting videos out and articles on women is excellent. It's a good publicity. People see, okay, tank industry isn't just for men. When it comes to diversity, I have my opinion is that starts in the interview process, and I have a strong belief that we should take away the bias out of the interview process. And with that, what I mean is, I think when the curriculum vitae arrive at the headhunter or human resources or whoever's doing that, I think they should remove the distinguishing features, so name, address, age, the way in which you've done your education. And by that, I mean, did you start education later in life or earlier in life? And I think by presenting then a curriculum vitae with only skills, experiences and education levels, I think you take away the bias, because then people look at the curriculum vitae and people will be invited for an interview based on factual things.
Yeah.
And the internal bias, for example, of, oh, he's too old, she's too young, oh, they started studying much later, wrong university, for example, or wrong postal address, they're not going to want to travel that far. All those assumptions people make are no longer possible if you have only a CV with competencies, education, experiences. I think that is a good start. I think once, and then when we're talking about existing employees in an organisation, I think education is important and an open culture. I think everybody has their internal bias, and sometimes we don't always know it. And I think if you educate people about what bias is and what form it can take, then you educate people to talk about it with each other. And I think it's important that that discussion is open and that people aren't afraid. My worry right now is that there's so much emphasis on saying the right thing and political correctness, and people being sent away from their job immediately if they've made a mistake. I think you actually drive bias underground, so you don't actually tackle the problem. So I think you need a much more lenient system where you can educate and discuss and challenge in an unthreatening way. I think be your authentic self. I really do, because society is changing. There's more acceptance, of course, of all walks of life entering any industry. And I think be your authentic self. Don't try and be somebody else. I know as a younger person in industry, I was trying to fit into a particular mold. I've always been surrounded by, to be honest, white males, mostly. Yeah. And in the beginning, trying to fit in and trying to wear the power suit. And I remember a male colleague actually saying to me one day, "Oh, you're a second-class man." I was Yeah, I was 25 years old when he said it, because I arrived at work wearing a kind of suit, you know, with a bit of a shoulder pads, trying to fit in.
Yeah.
And as soon as he said it, I thought, oh wow, I've lost sight of who I am, you know. So I think authenticity is really important, because people spot it if you're not authentic. I think for the same reason as it's important to have a diverse group throughout all levels in industry, I think it's really important at the top to have diversity, and in this case we're talking about women, because they have also an understanding of what it is to have a family life and to work as well. That you have a different look at things, and that people understand you can get the job done in different ways. I know when I was managing teams, I was always quite flexible if people needed to pick up a child early, for example, or needed to go to the dentist, or all those unexpected things that happen. Schools that suddenly announce there'll be a play at 12 o'clock in the afternoon rather than, 7 at night, all that kind of thing. And I was always very flexible, because for me what was important is to be result orientated, and it didn't really matter to me where or how somebody achieved the result, as long as that was being delivered. It was fine for me if, for example, on a Wednesday afternoon they were working at home. So I think flexibility is the key. If you have a diverse mix, you'll have also flexibility on all levels. Open-mindedness and education, I think, and that open culture, to be able to challenge each other, because like I say, we all have an internal bias, and many of us don't even know what that is until somebody else who's more objective spots it. So you have, it's important that you can have that discussion. For example, if you're in an interview process and at the end of it, you say, oh, really, not that person. It could just be a real personal aversion. And I think it's important to challenge that, and to get people to look in the mirror and ask themselves why they're feeling a particular way about people, or a candidate in this case.